I would like to now refer to and have the 5-minute program begin with Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island.
And I'd like to say how much I encourage that and second it and think it was a wise decision.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Much appreciated to you and Joe. Mr. Reichler, my first questions are for you. The first is, what is the meaning of the temporary or reversible standard, and how is it met in the case of seizing Russian frozen assets in these circumstances? Put your mic on.
Thank you. Under general or customary international law, which is reflected in the Articles on the Responsibility of States for Internationally Wrongful Acts, countermeasures are limited to the non-performance for the time being of international obligations of the state, taking the measures toward the responsible state, and they shall, as far as possible, be taken in such a way as to permit the resumption of performance of the obligations in question. These provisions have been interpreted by the International Court of Justice as requiring the reversibility of countermeasures, which is the term that you used, Senator. What that would mean in the case of the asset transfers to Ukraine or other victims would be that the assets, the amount of the assets transferred may not exceed the sum total of the compensation to which Russia owes Ukraine.
Got it.
Furthermore, if I just may add,
My time's running out, so if you don't mind being brief.
that amount would be deducted. The amount transferred would be deducted from Russia's total liability.
Yeah.
That would satisfy the reversibility standard, and I think that is what the REPO Act calls for.
Thank you. And Ambassador Fried, we've been told that the practical aftermath of seizure could lead to a gallery of horribles, including effects on the dollar as reserve currency, including creating a precedent for future unjustified sovereign asset seizures, and including moving the economic center of gravity away from the free world and from our institutions. Are those credible to you?
Two-part answer to this. One, we all want risk-free policy options. They seldom exist. Secondly, I've heard the arguments also. I'm not sure I buy them. To be blunt, the Chinese and Saudis probably noticed that we immobilized the Russian foreign exchange reserves. They didn't pull their money out of G7 banks, not out of goodwill, but because they recognize that there are a few alternatives. They're going to, where else will they put them? So I'm not sure. I've always been skeptical of the arguments that this will cause a race from the dollar and euro-dominated international financial system. Is there zero risk? No. But considering the problem we are grappling with, which is a major war, a war of conquest and national extermination, it's worth doing. It's worth doing.
Thank you. Ms. Liskina, you're a U.S. lawyer. You work for a U.S. law firm. You understand the value of leverage, and you've described the West right now as serving as Vladimir Putin's bankers by holding on to the frozen funds for him. Tell me what you think the effect might be if the threat of seizure of those assets became credible to Vladimir Putin. It's one thing to have hundreds of billions of dollars on the shelf that you can plan on getting back at the conclusion of the conflict. It's a very different thing if we've actually started seizing and delivering to Ukraine those funds. Does that create international leverage on Putin in the meantime to ameliorate his behavior for fear of losing all of his sovereign funds?
Absolutely, I think it does. But first, I would like to address this leverage argument by asking what leverage exactly? The funds have been frozen for over a year and a half. If we were going to see meaningful leverage now, we would have already seen it. So doing the same thing.
If freezing alone
If freezing alone.
created the leverage, yes.
Indeed. Russia has shown it's willing to pay a high price to conquer Ukraine. So these assets aren't leveraged by keeping them frozen. Russia has already written them off, and they're a drop in the bucket in what he is spending on this war. By using them now, this shows that the West is serious about Russia's act of aggression. Not only does it show Russia and Putin the seriousness of the West, it also serves a function of helping Ukraine withstand Russia's aggression, and that is perhaps the most important effect of this. It is an economic counteroffensive that the West must be doing right now.
Good words to end on. My time has expired. Thank you, Chairman.